Okay.
Like when it's not first and my dad was talking about it because we have family back over there, and he was telling me, oh, they have to get rid of this waste, and once they do, it's most likely going to go to oceans, radioactive for the next 2. So that's like
Yeah.
that's pretty scary.
Okay. I was hanging out with some guy many, many years ago. His name was Krishnamurti. I am certain you haven't heard of his name. Krishnamurti was born in late, like 1880 some. And there was an organization that was created. It was called the Theosophical Society. It was led by Henry Alcott and not Helena Blavatsky, but Annie Besant. They had read through the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Buddhist scriptures, the Hindu scriptures, and they came to realize that, that it seems like every 2,000 years or so, a Messiah appears. And a Messiah is nothing more than someone who understands human nature, someone who understands human life and its complexities, and provides a teaching of sorts to people. And it's not a teaching that's just for you, it's for everybody. So for example, if you look at the gospel where it says you can't make the grass grow by pulling it, it makes no difference if you're black or white or blue or yellow or 5 or 55 or 555. If you are not ready to learn, you can't be forced to learn. So when, for example, you're in a classroom and or you have a companion or whatever the case may be, that you keep talking but they don't listen well, after a while you just kind of make them invisible. You don't pay them attention. They're just not ready. Okay? You can keep trying, but that depends on, do you want to waste energy? Do you want to waste time? Do you want to give yourself stress? For what reason? All right? So that's what I mean by a Messiah, someone who has teaching that belongs to everyone. Okay? Now, so they went around the world and they did this, and they did this research. They were looking for someone who has those qualities inside him or her. And they came to 2 people. One was, one was Jiddu Krishnamurti, he was 11, and one was Christmas Humphreys. Krishnamurti was Indian, and Christmas Humphreys was English. Right? After many, many months, they came to discover that Krishnamurti has all the right components on the inside. Okay? Let's say that you want to save the earth, for example, and it's time for you to buy a car. Do you buy an SUV? Do you buy a small Toyota? Do you buy a hybrid? Do you buy all electric? Okay? So depending on what exactly it is you're looking for and how your interior is, that will help you make a decision as to what kind of a car you want to buy. And you realize that for the past 5 years, you've been really, really interested in climate, in making sure that all of us remain here on this planet for the next 5 million years. So you don't want gas, you don't want hybrid, you go fully electric. The problem with going fully electric, like a Tesla, is you look at your savings and you say, do I have $70,000 to spare? Can I put a down payment? Do I have a job that can make a steady payment of, say, $400 to the bank, or whatever the case may be, so I can buy a Tesla? So, and that's how they were looking. They were looking for certain components inside the human being. Do they have all the necessary components to change, to learn, to be educated? So he died in 1986 at the age of 91. I met him only for a few years before his passing, and I liked something that he said constantly in his lectures for, almost 60, 70 years. To go very far, you got to start with very near. Okay? Let me give you an example. I just met Washington. I like to go very far with him, which means what? I like to get to know him. Where he's from, what his life is. But you see, him and I just met. If I was to ask him these questions, he may not welcome me. He may find me to be intrusive, imposing. Okay? And then instead of him liking me, he'll very, very quickly begin to dislike me. So how do we start near? Hey, Washington, what's going on, man? How you doing? Things are good? You like your sister? You don't like, yeah, me neither. You see what's happening? We break bread by small talk, by laughing. It creates trust. It creates likability. After 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes or maybe hours of doing this, then I can say, so Washington, how's your mom? How's your dad? Where were you born? See, that intimacy now creates a path where I can walk and ask him questions that initially was uncomfortable, but now becomes comfortable. It's really very much like a date. You know, you don't go out with someone and say, hey, you know,
Yeah.
So how about a coffee? You want some French fries? You want In-N-Out? You want cheeseburger? You want double, triple? And you just allow things to happen. So I bring him up because of his comment. To go very far, you start very near. I want to tell you what is near, and then we'll go to the stuff that are very, very far. When I was driving to school this morning at 4:30 in the morning, I get to my office around 5 to write for about 3-4 hours. As I was driving, I saw people in tents by the highway. Then I was on Lakeshore. I saw these tiny houses. Then I saw some more tents. I saw some people sleeping on the benches. I could have thought about the lake and how polluted it is. I could have been very compassionate about the fish and the rats and all that stuff. But I realized that as I'm driving to school, I'm seeing all these people in need. Say, okay, that is very, very near to me. And a few years ago, Laney College spent a few $1 million on their football field. Look at this classroom. Look at the state of this classroom. It is ugly. In some ways, the district and the maybe administrators are saying, without really telling it to you, we don't really care about you. This is a room, it's relatively functional, just sit in it and listen to an instructor who doesn't know what he or she is talking about. But listen nevertheless, because they have power over you. Your future is in their hands. They will issue you grades, do you see? Now, football field and football players, it benefits them. I had a student who was homeless, C.J. Anderson. I don't know if have heard of him. He went, played for Broncos. Him and I became really, really good friends. He was supposed to buy me a new car once he went pro, but that never happened. He comes by once in a while. One time he came by to pay me a visit and he gave me his underwear. And I put it on eBay and sold it for $25. So it's not to kind of say negative things about the football field or football players, but the truth is majority of our students struggle in life. They want to come to a classroom that's relatively clean. It says to them in a very subtle way that we care for you. It's nice to be in a clean environment, you see. Now, what Nietzsche argues is this. Let me first tell you a little bit about Friedrich Nietzsche. He died very, very young. He also became a professor at the age of 24, unheard of in the 19th century. He was an introvert, which means this. Washington comes to me and says, I don't know my dad, I don't know my mom. I was put in foster care. And instead of making this into an intellectual issue, I take that story inside me. Man, that must suck. Forgive me, it's not about you. You know? I mean, what do kids want, man? They want their mom to go to the principal and say, I need my daughter to be pulled out of class right now. It's an emergency. Say, okay. And then they hold hands, they go to In-N-Out. And they go to Fairyland. Is that what it's called, Fairyland? Fairy World or whatever, right? I mean, that's what kids want, man. They want pleasant surprises. We call it formative years. You know, it's like a beginning of a new relationship. Well, damn, you don't want to be abusive. You don't want to be vulgar. You don't want to be crude, right? You want to be gentle. You want to be soft-spoken. You want to walk with dignity. You want to be respectful. That's what you want to do. And so when he tells me a story, I take it inside. And I say, man, what do you do with that? Have you seen that movie, Four Brothers? You haven't seen the movie? You've seen Washington? Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh my God. Forget climate. Forget people. Go home, watch Four Brothers. It is an immensely great movie. It really, really is. And I say this for a couple of reasons. First, you got a mother who is Caucasian, i.e. white. You have a woman, okay? For whatever the reasons are, and the movie doesn't tell us this, but if you have some imagination and your imagination is rather fertile, very creative, you can kind of just, put the dots together. So you have this woman, maybe her husband passed, maybe her kids went away, maybe she was always single, she always wanted to have kids, but she couldn't. She adopts 4 kids. Not girls, boys. One of the things about having girls is this. Girls, they may go to Nebraska or to the moon, but they'll eventually come back home. Boys, once they go, man, they go. And they'll call you like once every 10 years. Mom, how you doing? Okay, it's good to hear you. We'll see you. That's it. Okay. Now, what are these boys? 2 are black, 2 are white. And in the movie, they call each other brothers. I mean, that's a really, really amazing thing. First, it's difficult being in foster care because you want to know what exactly is wrong with you that you were abandoned. Are you like physically disabled, emotionally disabled? Is there something like inherently wrong with you? You begin to doubt and question your existence. If I was never wanted, why was I conceived? Do you see? I mean, you have all these ridiculous questions. I mean, they're beautiful questions. It's difficult to answer, especially to a mind that's only 2 years old. Why am I here? If you didn't want to take care of me, why did you bring me here? Okay? Now, I don't know how 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 10-year-olds overcome those questions. I mean, that in itself is like magic. I mean, talk about baptism through fire. It's very easy to go to church and this guy pours some water on you, give you some chips, give you some food and say, you're baptized. But to sit home, close your eyes and keep asking these difficult questions, I don't know how people do it. Really, because it's such a tremendous grieving process you have to go through. And whether you come out in the light or you enter more darkness, no one really knows, okay? And then you have this strange woman adopting 4 kids from 4 different backgrounds, all having suffered a good amount of trauma. How do you overcome your trauma? To begin to trust someone, to have faith in someone, and ultimately to love them. To the point where you're willing to sacrifice your own life for your brother from a different mother. How do you do it? I mean, that's an amazing phenomenon. Okay? Now, that's what I mean when you internalize something. Friedrich Nietzsche was in the business of internalizing things. Okay? Which means what? Have you seen that Greek image of Atlas? It's a Greek god. So you have this man. Let's call him Washington the Atlas. Okay? What is it that this mythical figure carries? He's carrying this entire globe, this entire world on his shoulders. His knees are bent. His back is broken like this. And he's got like that, you know? And in some ways, you can look at this in a variety of different ways. If you are a human being, you have to carry so much on your back. It's really just quite ridiculous. Consider for a moment, Zion. Can you carry on your back what it means to be 60? Imagine if you were to internalize. Close your eyes and ask yourself, how does a 60-year-old man, not so much a woman, just me, how does a 60-year-old man feel? What is his identity? What is he going through internally? As you get older, you have less time ahead of you, but a good amount of time behind you. Which means that the sort of things I think about these days has to do with getting sick, getting older, more decrepit, ultimately die a very painful death. And now that death is very, very close to me, I ask myself difficult questions. What am I doing here? Who am I talking to? Is it worth me coming to class every day and talking to people who just don't care? And even if they did care, it's like buying a Tesla. You like a Tesla, but you don't have the resources. So all you have is imagination. That's what I mean by internalizing. And here's the problem. If you begin to internalize what it feels like to be your mom, 50, 60, soon you realize you're no longer 18, Zion. You may look like an 18-year-old, but your emotions are as old as your mom. You become, metaphorically speaking, Atlases, the female version. Who the hell wants that? Forgive me. Who wants that? No one. So when we talk about people like Friedrich Nietzsche, when we talk about people like Malcolm X, when we talk about James Baldwin, when we talk about Mahatma Gandhi, Jesus Christ, Mohammed, you need to consider that these are people who are carrying the entire sins of the world on their shoulder. That's Nietzsche. What does Nietzsche say about climate change? He doesn't really say much about climate change, but this is what he argues. It is so difficult to see what's in front of you. It is so difficult to see what's in front of you. Why? Because you don't know what to do with it. It's difficult. How do you go to a homeless person and say, what can I do for you? Because what you're dealing with all of a sudden is they've been homeless for about 30 years. Maybe 20 years, maybe 10 years, okay? They have abandonment issues. They may have drug issues. They may have addiction issues. They may have anger issues. And you say, well, where do I start? See, I mentioned in this class some weeks ago, that I like building houses. Sometimes I walk into a house and I say, yeah, that stud looks good and that stud looks good, but for the most part, the whole thing is a mess. I'm not going to spend 5 hours of my time picking and choosing which studs to keep and which ones to throw away. I'm just going to bring a bulldozer and get rid of the whole thing. When you deal with someone or something that's really, really problematic, the question is, what do you do with it? You become paralyzed. It's just too much. It really is too much. So you do something very, very cunning. You make a phone call to Gavin Newsom. Hey, Gavin, can I come pay you a visit? He says, yeah, of course. Now you're sitting with Gavin Newsom, great hair, great looking guy, isn't he? He's a nice looking man. And you say to him, Gavin, listen, I've been thinking about the homeless situation in the Bay Area. Let's put some ink on paper to figure out what we need to do. Let's legislate some laws. And what you have done is this. Having come to realize that it's really, really difficult to help a single human being, you say, let me take the easy path. It doesn't, you don't think of it this way, but you say, I'm going to go read lots of books. I'm going to go and do a lot of research and write everything down. in a book and then give it to Gavin, that's going to take me about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And hopefully the homeless issue will be gone. So what Nietzsche argues is this: it is so difficult for all of us in this class to fix problems that we see. It's in our face. So if I was to take it to where you're going with the climate, remember, I have utmost respect for what you're doing, okay? But this is a philosophy. It's a place where you think. I don't care about your belief system. I don't care about your faith. That's not my issue. It may be yours, but not mine. I'm here to make sure that you know how to look at things very, very clearly without any self-deception. When you see homelessness in Oakland, why do you care about the lake? It makes no sense. Remember, I used to be young. I know what it means to be a dreamer. More power to you. If you can make a dent in this climate disaster that we have, good for you. But again, I go back to Nietzsche. Why is it that we escape, we run away from the near to go very far? Because the near is difficult. Let me give you another scenario. About 12, 13, 14 people in this room. Some people are bored. Some people are doing other things. You know, some people come here once in a while. Some people just don't have the capacity to listen. Some people don't have the capacity to learn. Some people are just not interested, period. What do? I ramble on for about an hour and 15 minutes. Why? It's the only way that I can overlook the fact that I see people in this classroom who are bored, not interested, don't care. What's going to happen if I say, you, Charles, you're falling asleep. What's wrong with you? What's that going to happen? It's going to be personal now. He's going to be upset. I'm going to be upset. Where's that going to go? It's going to go nowhere. So what do? I say, forget Charles. Let me just ramble on. It's the easiest thing I can do. It's what we call education. Amber?
Yeah. I have a question.
I'm curious, why is your name Amber?
Why? I don't know. My dad made it. It's Anbad.
I'm sorry?
Anbad.
You're what?
It's Anbad in Farsi. Like Anbar.
Anbad. Anbad. I have never heard it, but okay.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of the issues that immigrants have, because you have a kid, and this is America. And you say, okay, I don't want my kid to be bullied in school by having people call them like fart or something. So let's give him two names, a traditional name and a Western name.
Yeah.
And it's something that, yeah, okay. So Amber, yeah.
Yeah. So I had this conversation with somebody the other day because I just got a new puppy, right?
Oh, no.
And we had a conversation about responsibility. And even though, like, I was explaining, so some people just don't want the responsibility of, like, helping others or going outside their bubble. Like, so I was talking about, okay, no, I love my puppy because the type of love that the animal gives me, I can't get it from a human. Because it's the type of love where it's like, it's pure. They can't talk back to me. They can't, like, do anything, but a human, they have complex emotions. And I was talking about how, like, with animals and pets, it's more of a pure love. And that's why, like, I'm willing to, like, not get frustrated when my dog needs to go to the bathroom, or I'm willing to be patient and all that. And then he was just saying, like, no, like, what if I want to go somewhere, like, something like that,
Okay.
And I was just saying, but I'm doing it from my heart. And he was like, oh, but that's different. Like, I like animals.
Amber, I really, really don't mean to be disagreeable.
Yeah.
But I have to be.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. First of all, having pets the way we do these days is a recent phenomenon. Okay? A couple of things you need to understand. First, money for most of us, for the longest time in history, was really, really difficult to come by. It wasn't like you can go to In-N-Out and make $20 an hour. I mean, this is a recent phenomenon, I remember when I came to this country after a few years, I worked for Church's Fried Chicken. My pay was, I think, $1.90, And then after like 2 years, they gave me a raise of 10 cents. So it went to $2. It's true that the rent was like $250 and all that stuff, but still. So why is it that most of us, say 60, 70, 80, 100 years ago, did not really have pets? Not like nobody had pets. People did, but most often, nobody had pets. Why? You had love from your mom, love from your dad, love from your sisters and brothers, love from your community, love from your relatives. There was no void inside you. It wasn't like there was this new phenomenon, this poverty. Said, I never see my mom, I never see my dad, my sisters aren't here, I don't really know, I'm glued to my technology, my telephone, so I don't really know how to speak well. My emotions are strangers to me, I don't really think well about anything. I feel so deficient, I'm so poor in so many different areas. I talk to my dad, but he doesn't really listen. I talk to my mom, she's absent. My sisters and brothers are doing their own thing. I feel so alone. So what do? You go to SPCA and you buy a crocodile, and that becomes your pet. And then you say, I have this pure love for my lion, for my tiger. I'm saying there is nothing wrong with that, because animals these days are profoundly therapeutic. What your parents don't give you, what society doesn't give you, what your relatives don't give you, now you have your dogs and cats and other things give you, which is really, really, really good. Because if it wasn't for these animals, all of us would be, psychos. We'd run the street just screaming and crying because we need help. There was this painter in the 19th century, Norwegian. His name is Edvard Munch. Have you heard of him? Not a very attractive fellow, but nevertheless. He has this painting called The Scream. You have two people. They're like eating In-N-Out burger, cheeseburger with shake and French fries. And they're laughing and having a good time. And there is this man on the middle of the bridge, you see, and he's screaming. But these two people don't pay him attention. And the message is, even if you scream right now in this class, we're not going to interpret your screaming as Amber is in so much pain and anguish. She needs to be heard. She needs to be listened to. Let all of us come together and see what the heck is going on with this girl. That's not what we'll do. I'm going to say, Amber, please, can you maybe step out of the classroom? When the class is over, maybe you can come back and you and I will slowly walk to the nurse's office, and then she'll probably refer you to some place. They'll have some conversation with you. If that doesn't go anywhere, they'll give you some pills. If that doesn't go anywhere, well, we'll figure something out. So human pain is looked upon as a disease now. Okay? And that's what Munch is talking about, that you and I have come to a stage in society, in our social life, where there is no one who's willing to listen to us. And if they are, they'll give us 5 minutes. It's like, I don't know if you've ever been to Kaiser. Now, the doctors at Kaiser have a limited amount of time where they can spend with their patient. 10 to about 14, 15 minutes, no more. Because you'll get marked up. I don't mind listening to your life issues. No more than 5 minutes. If it exceeds that, I become bored, uninterested. Why do we have pets? I know you love your dog, more power to you. And the other thing about human beings is that, look, there's a cat that meows once in a while, comes to the backyard. I look at the cat and what do I say? He's meowing because either he wants to or she wants to be petted, or they want food. I don't know if the cat needs therapy. That's not my job. But you should know that there are yoga shops for dogs and cats now, okay? And there are therapy sessions now for dogs and cats. So whatever human beings are going through, it seems that we have imposed that stuff on animals as well. Yeah, Zion?
Yeah, on what Amir said about like how animals love. Like, okay, when I see a homeless population, I feel like it's kind of, I feel helpless in it. My animal is, are like usually so much work. I give what I can, but it's like I only make mistakes.
Sure.
And still do with my
Sure.
parents. So it's like when I see like the climate crisis, I've always been like just super pro Earth. One, I don't really see two people who are like pro, who are eco-friendly are like really pro that. So like I do that. And then two, it's like since this is affecting the lake right now, it's ultimately gonna affect the food chain with all these fish dying out, which could lead to starvation, which will eventually
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah.
affect us. And then it's like I have younger siblings too. And it's like, I don't want them growing up into this world where they have to always deal with natural disasters or can't get fresh water or fresh food. So that's why.
No, it's great. As I said, at the very beginning, I think more power to you that we have young people who are very engaged in being, socially active. But there are always two sides to the coin. There is the optimistic way of looking at things, and there is the pessimistic way, or not so much pessimistic. There was once a question asked of, some scholar, what is the difference between a pessimist and an optimist? And the answer was, the pessimist has more information. Mike Tyson recently did an interview. He said, as I'm getting older, I'm becoming more conservative. Why? As you age, you begin to see more. Not only see more of your own mistakes that you have committed in life, but you also see young people going through the same stuff that you did when you were young. And no matter how many times you give them advice, they simply won't buy it. And because of more information, you have a tendency of, after a while, just losing interest and compassion and care. It's not because you're callous. It's not because you don't care. You care too much, and you have tried, but you have failed, so you walk away. One of the best examples of this, you can read in the Gospel of Judas. You don't have to be a Christian for this. You have to have a curious mind, do you see? How did the great sages function when they were around people? It's a very, very interesting story. If I was to just give you a 5-minute synopsis, Gospel of Mark. This guy is misunderstood. His disciples don't get who he is. Nobody gets who he is. And he lives a miserable life. He gets trounced upon on a daily basis. And his death is painful.